Okay, guys, today we're going to talk about how to create a great thesis statement. A thesis statement, as you can see, has to answer a question that you pose, and it has to be a solution for the problem, or it takes a position on a debatable topic, which is what we're really going to focus on because we're doing argumentation. So here's 3 criteria for every thesis. It has to announce the topic to the reader. It has to reflect a judgment about the topic, and it must provide the reader with a blueprint for what is to come in the paper. Okay, if you don't have all those 3 things, it is not a thesis. Okay, so I'm going to give you some general tips about thesis statements. A statement that contains the essay topic and points. It gives the reader a sense of what the essay will be about. It comes at the end of the introduction in MLA format and comes at the beginning of the introduction in APA. Thesis statements are only one sentence. Now, there will be occasions where somebody will tell you, maybe in social studies class, it is more than one sentence, but that's for testing, and I would rather it be a purpose statement. Okay, so I rather you call it that. This is a thesis statement, and a thesis statement is typically one sentence unless you're writing a dissertation, which we aren't there yet. Okay, must be a complete sentence, and a complete sentence requires a noun and a verb, or a subject and a predicate, and it must be a complete thought. Okay, everything in the essay has to support the thesis, and I'll show you more about that in a little while. Okay, the introduction paragraph should follow this format. Okay, is you have an attention getter, you introduce a topic, and you state the thesis. Or depending on if you're doing APA, you'll state the thesis, and that should be an attention getter, and then you introduce the topic generally. All right, so what are the roles of the thesis? We're just going to talk about number 1. As you see, I've underlined and circled with this little glittery ink. Okay, it can assert an argument. Okay, that's all we're looking at. All right, theses do other things because you have them in other essays, but today we're only talking about an argument thesis. All right, so how do you construct one, Ms. Shields? Well, I'm glad you asked. So, it contains the essay's topics, point, and sometimes it has the 3 reasons. I'm going to tell you it should cover the 3 reasons, so you don't have to list them, because listing is something like kind of a crutch, and we don't want to do things that are crutch that will enable us from getting stronger. Okay, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. All right, so your thesis statement should cover an umbrella topic. So it contains the points, and it doesn't necessarily mean you name them all, but let's say you have 3 points. You can have more than 3, and sometimes depending on the essay, especially with a compare and contrast, you may have less than 3. So your thesis will, like this second point says, does not directly state the supporting reasons, but alludes to them, and it should cover and encompass them all. Okay, so for example, although the thought to be humane and necessary, animal testing for medical and cosmetic purposes does not live up to its promises. Okay, so do not use language like there are many reasons. Okay, that's simplistic. All right, let's go on. So you need to determine your essay topic. So for example, let's say Pixar's film Up, which I love. Okay, and then you need to decide what kind of paper you're writing. Like I said, we're talking about argument. Okay, so this one, for example, is going to be an argument. It's not a kids movie. So the way you construct your thesis is how you structure it. Okay, so you're gonna put it all together. So example, Pixar's film Up should not be considered a kid movie because its characters, conflicts, and main theme of loss are too complex for children to understand. Now, there you go. So how do you evaluate your thesis? Is it too broad or is it too narrow? Well, here are some little questions you should ask. If it's too broad, you should ask yourself, is it too vague? Is it vague? Is it ambiguous, or overreaching? Do the claims not meet the 3 criteria we listed before? And does it attempt to address a topic with too many issues to deal with in the given writing assignment? If it's too narrow, do the claims that do not meet at least 2 of the 3 criteria that we mentioned before, and is it too specific and single-minded to be a developed and thorough essay? Okay, so let's look at this. In this essay, you don't want to confuse the reader. All right, so make sure your topic and points are clear. It can't be a fact because it has to be something that's debatable. And don't use dead words like good, bad, right. That's generalistic and it's just bad writing. And it cannot be a question. It's always a statement. All right, so let's look at these. Let's practice with these thesis statements. We're going to identify them as either too broad or too narrow or too strong. So I'll give you a minute to read through these and you decide your answer. Okay, so I hope you came up with some answers for these. So let's look at the actual responses answers, okay? So number 1 was too broad, 2 was broad, 3 was narrow, 4 is a strong thesis, 5 is narrow, 6 is strong, 7 is narrow, and 8 is strong. All right, so I hope this helped you guys. Good luck on your thesis writing and paper writing.